Like so many of my fellow horror fanatics, I downloaded the Shudder app a couple of years ago purely so I could watch Joe Bob Briggs back on my TV again. And what a fun experience it was. But since then, I have browsed Shudder's library, and I'm quite happy to say it is not money wasted, because they have a very fun selection of many fond memories of my boyhood, like Sleepaway Camp, the Phantasm films, The Hills Have Eyes, and so many others. But they're also starting to branch off into some fun, new, and original content, most of which has leaned more toward the schlocky, not that there's anything wrong with that. But they are also experimenting with some more, I don't know if serious is the right word, type of content. Which brings us to the topic of today's review, Host, which has been raising a lot of buzz over social media in the last week since its release in the end of July. Now, personally, I prefer this Host. Easily the best episode of The X-Files, but hell, all the early ones were the best. Now, the plot of this film, and just on a side note, I would barely even consider it a movie, because coming in at just slightly under an hour, it barely fits feature length. But I do digress. The plot concerns several friends who decide to perform a seance via long-distance chat, like Skype or Zoom. Inevitably, they end up raising a little hell and unleashing forces that they can't quite control. And each one of them has to sit and watch in petrified horror as the supernatural forces stalk them down one by one. Yeah, pretty cliched plot that we've seen plenty of times, and at times downright predictable. But I do have to say that for the most part, this film did make very good use of its short runtime. Probably its single greatest strength is the sheer pacing. They keep the events moving very smoothly, so you never get bored, and the time just flies. And that's really a big drawback when you're dealing with found footage, at least in my opinion, is that very often they can drag. You know, the original Blair Witch, as much affection as I have for it, gets painfully slow and dull for a good deal of its length time. With Host, that is not a concern. The jump scares are, for the most part, pretty damn well done. I mean, you can see a lot of them coming a mile away, but they manage to at least still get you. Now, as far as the supernatural effects, it's the definition of low budget. And it actually reminded me a lot of the very first VHS film, in that some shots look like they put some real serious effort into them. Others, you can practically see the damn tripwire. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because it also adds a certain charm to it. Low and high, good and bad. Now, for a Shudder original, I think this is definitely branching off for them. And something I had mentioned to some friends recently is I would like to see Shudder take a gamble on some animation in the future. But that's going to rely entirely on their growth, which is part of why I'm making this video. I want to help raise awareness and help Shudder grow, because in my opinion, it's a damn good streaming service. Now, the ending of Host is, sad to say, a bit predictable, like I had mentioned earlier. You know, inevitably, the supernatural forces finish them all off one by one. I'm not going to spoil it too much by telling you how, but you can see that ending coming a mile away. That said, it's well done, and there's actually some pretty creative kill scenes, particularly when they're switching back and forth between the multiple cameras, and occasionally it's more than one person on one camera, so you get a good deal of misdirection. Overall, I would have to rate Host as a solid 3 out of 4 stars. Is it perfect? By no means. But it's fun, and it's a great way to spend your afternoon if you got nothing else going. I highly recommend Shudder to all my fellow horror fanatics out there, because not only did they bring us Joe Bob back, but I think this could be a great platform for independent artists and original content makers, like my friends, the DeBlias sisters. So I really would like to recommend that you all please download Shudder. I will link their site down in the description bar. At the very least, it's worth the free trial just to check their library out. By the way, they have the Burbs, at least last I checked. That's always a plus. So this has been my review of Host. I hope you will all check it out. As always, eat, drink, and be scary, and and enjoy.